This is Economy Watch, what you need to know about New Zealand's economic life today. Brought to you by interest.co.nz.
Kia ora, and welcome to Friday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect New Zealand. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz, and today we lead with news inflation's pressures seem to be cooling in all the world's major economies. But first, in seasonally adjusted terms, the number of people claiming American unemployment benefits fell last week by 17,000 from the prior week, and a 5-week low, and below market expectations of 236,000. In actual terms, there was little change, though. Either way, the levels are low and not indicating impending labour market stress there. The all-important American consumer inflation rate fell to 3% in June, and lower than the expected 3.1%. Their core inflation rate fell too. Food costs rose just 2.2%, and energy costs just 1%. Petrol costs actually fell 2.5%. Keeping the overall rate up were airfares, which were up 9.4%, and rent up 5.2%. Clearly the conditions for a US Fed rate cut are getting closer. Financial markets, however, displayed mixed and muted reactions after the release. Bond yields fell and the US dollar had a small move lower. And equity markets decided they might have overpriced future rate cut effects, so pulled back from its record high pricing. The US Treasury 30-year bond auction today was reasonably well supported with a median yield of 4.33%. This is very similar to the 4.35% at the equally well supported prior equivalent event a month ago. And the US federal government had a monthly deficit of $66 billion in June, which takes its full deficit to $1.57 billion for the past 12 months. That makes it now equivalent to 5.5% of their GDP. As large as these levels seem, they record a remarkable improvement. At the end of the Trump term, the annual deficit was running at $2.7 trillion, or 9.3% of their GDP. They've clearly made progress cleaning up some of their mess. But overall levels of federal debt to third parties are still growing, although no longer as fast as economic activity. In Japan, machinery orders fell in May from April when a small rise was anticipated. Japan's core machinery orders, which include those for ships and electric power companies, fell 3.2% month on month. This also missed market expectations for a 0.8% gain. The decrease in capital spending was driven by a sharp decline in the non-manufacturing sector, although machinery orders from manufacturers rose 1% in April to be 10.8% higher than year-ago levels. Orders, including those big lumpy items, did rise sharply, however. By the way, the very weak Japanese yen recovered somewhat, up 2%, after the June US CPI data was released. Markets think the Bank of Japan intervened to generate the rally. Meanwhile, Germany said its CPI inflation rate fell to 2.2% in June. Australian consumer inflation expectations barely edged lower to 4.3% in July from 4.4% in June. This is no progress because they averaged less than 4% in the 2012 to 2019 period. They seem stuck at over 4%, well above the RBA's target range. And staying in Australia, mining giant BHP is mothballing its Western Australian nickel mines, including the country's only smelter for the key battery metal. They said the move was due to global oversupply that has crashed nickel prices over the past year. The glut has been driven by a surge in production from Indonesia, where many operations are bankrolled by Chinese investors. Thousands of Aussie jobs are at risk. Global container freight rates may be reaching their peak. They rose just 1% last week from the prior week, staying in the stratosphere. But at least the impetus seems to have stopped. But when will they fall back to reasonable levels? Canal pressures are the key to that. Bulk cargo rates ease slightly, though. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now at 4.19% and down 9 basis points from yesterday. And the price of gold will start today up $41 from yesterday at $2,413 an ounce. The last and only time it was over $2,400 was in mid-May. The record high is $2,450 an ounce. Oil prices are still just under $81.50 a barrel in the US, while the international Brent price is up 50 cents at just on $85 a barrel. And the Kiwi dollar starts today little change from yesterday, now at 60.9 US cents. against the Aussie was still at 90.2 Australian cents, against the euro marginally lower at 56.1 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today down 10 basis points at 69.8. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $57,888, and again virtually unchanged from this time yesterday. Volatility over the past 24 hours has stayed modest at just under plus or minus 2%. You can find links to the articles mentioned today in our show notes, and you can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and we'll do this again on Monday.